If our call is to make disciples, that was what Jesus said. He didn't say go build big churches. He didn't say go make converts, go get people to get into heaven when they die. He said make disciples. Teach them to do what I have told you guys to do and live a fruitful life in the kingdom. So you just don't see any churches teaching that. That's the great gap. And when you have that, what you end up with is that lives aren't being transformed. We're missing the main point, and something has to change. We established what's called the Apprentice Institute for Christian Spiritual Formation at Friends University. If we could just attract people who wanted to change their minds, change their hearts, change the world, and walk them through this stuff, that'd be great.
There are a lot of places that'll teach you scripture and that'll teach you theology, but I genuinely believe that this program is a great way to teach you about discipleship as well as to just grow you spiritually and bring you closer to God.
I came in at the very beginning of the apprentice degree track, and so I was in with some very fresh minds, with some people who were like me, who were coming in at 18 years old, who wanted to know Jesus differently, and I was coming in with people who were 22, 23, who knew Jesus, and it was a great way to get introduced to this in-depth kind of program.
I had no idea what the CSF program was, but once I really started investing into it, it just became my passion, and it was where my heart was really at.
Christian spiritual formation is not just for a classroom, or not for just when I'm teaching my preschoolers at my church or when I'm in a small group. It's something I took every day to my job at a coffee shop. It's everywhere. It's very encompassing.
This time of life is so critical. We're really facing, what do I believe? What do I take from what my parents have taught me? There's a lot of self-discovery going on. It's really confusing, it's really scary, it's really new. And so I think it's really important for students to be surrounded in an environment where they are encouraged to grow, where they're encouraged to evaluate, okay, what's going on inside of me, and to slow down and be like, am I becoming more like Christ, or am I going away from becoming more like Christ?
We're just now sort of seeing the stories that these students' lives, what's happened to them in the process of learning this. And I'm so envious in a good way when I see what's happened in their lives, to think, oh, if I'd only known this when I was their age, it would have been spared so many years of frustration and misery as a Christian.
I wasn't really sure where I stood with Jesus when I came here. My job was to basically evangelize the world. That's what I thought. What else am I supposed to do? What else is my role? Who am I as a person? I felt like I was a tool in God's plan.
So growing up, my faith was very centered on the idea that I just needed to ask Jesus into my heart in order to go to heaven. And then I needed to get other people to do the same thing, so that we would all go to heaven when we die.
I always wrestled between this loving God and this God who was going to punish me when I did things wrongly.
Well, when I first came into Friends, I think I had this narrative of God that he was very distant, and a lot of that came from the fact that my dad was an alcoholic until I was 16. So I had this stranger in my house that either ignored me or didn't like me. And so that's the view that I had of God, just that he was really far away, and then it was very rare when he wanted me to be in his presence.
When I came to Friends, my life, it was really easy to compartmentalize everything, as if well, so I'm a student, and that's part of my life, and that's kind of separate of let's say what I do on Sunday morning. I'm also a musician, and that's kind of a nights and weekends thing, so that's kind of in its own place.
I am a chronic legalist, so if I want something to go well, I manufacture a way for them to go well, and then I try to stick to that way as much as possible. Like any legalist, I do this with my spirituality.
I felt like God was very judgmental and just had all of these rules about how to get to heaven when I die. And so I just felt like God was constantly judging me, and I felt like I was constantly falling short.
The community of the CSF program is what makes the whole thing work. I remember falling into this community of people that were really excited about Jesus, and really excited to spend time in prayer and worship.
And I wasn't taught to ask questions before I came in here. I was told very like black and white that here's what God is, here's what you're supposed to think of him, don't ask questions because that means you're doubting. And but I came here and they were like, you should ask questions and find what God really thinks of that. And that's been helpful. It's helped me to find a lot of security in my relationship with God. A lot of questions, but a lot of security too.
We came here and I really started to wrestle with these things, and we worked with them, and him revealing areas in my life that weren't glorifying to him, and I held on to those like a security blanket, and God was really trying to cut me loose from that.
With the faculty, they've changed the way that I think, the way that I question, even the way that I want to teach. When I have my own classroom, they have shown me belief. They've taught me to believe in myself because they believe in me, and that has inspired me then to want to believe in my students in that same way.
Both in community and through like kind of discovering what I want to do with my life has kind of brought everything into like an integrated whole, where like me being a student isn't in contrast or in conflict with who I know God is and the kind of Christian life that I want to lead. And so at the same time, me being a musician is part of a whole integrated spiritual life that God has directed.
I remember particularly struggling with being in school because my former life that I grew up in the church was hurting, and it was also a night that we had a tornado come into Wichita. So I remember sitting in my basement wanting protection from a lot of different things, and I was just so lost. The only thing that I could think to do was grab my phone and start texting one of the staff members of our CSF program. When I come back to school, I engage in my studies because I know that these people are real people, and they really do care. Coming
to Friends, that just got flipped on its head because I started learning about this God who likes me and this God who wants to sit with me and who just enjoys me. And even when I sin or anything, he's not making me jump through hoops to get back in his presence. It's more, please come sit with me, please come be with me and celebrate the fact that I've already forgiven you. So that's just entirely changed, like what I think of myself and what I think of Jesus.
It's been really beneficial for me in my growth process. So it's very helpful, it's very practical, and it's long-lasting. Like, I know that what I'm learning right now, it's not just good for me now, it's good for me for my entire life.
Since taking part of this program, I have become increasingly aware of how close Jesus really is.
They encourage me to be who I was created to be in God in a way that I've never experienced community doing before.
What you experience and what you learn will totally change your life.
It's so much more than just growing in your faith. It is truly a transformation. There's really nothing else like it.